welcome all of you, and welcome to those listening to and watching the recording to UWA's first webinar, where we get to talk about community conversations and the expression of interest process that is in place now at UWA, which is really exciting. For researchers, I know that you will really find the information and the conversation that we're having really valuable, and to highlight next steps for you as a researcher in terms of the way that you do research, but also the way that we can encourage and support you in involving people with a lived experience. But just before we start, I'd just like to make an acknowledgement of country. So we're meeting on Whadjuk Budja land, and the WHDN program acknowledges Aboriginal people of the many traditional lands and language groups of Western Australia. And we acknowledge the wisdom, the amazing wisdom of Aboriginal elders, both past and present, and pay respect to Aboriginal communities of today. For us, that's an important acknowledgement. Another important acknowledgement is to acknowledge the role and the value of people with a lived experience, because we see and feel that every day. My name's Deb Langridge, and I have the privilege of heading up the WA Health Translation Network's Consumer and Community Involvement Program, or CCI program as we refer to it. And I might get all of you, you know who you are, I might get all of you to introduce who you are.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Hi everyone, so I'm Romola Bucks, I'm a psychologist, and I am the Pro-Vice Chancellor Health and Medical Research, but I'm also the Director of the Raine study, which some of you know about, and my lovely colleague Diane here is from the Raine study. So over to you, Diane.
Yeah, Diane Wood. I've been with the Raine study a long time, so I have a lived experience working in the Raine study. I'm the follow-up coordinator and, more importantly, the participant engagement coordinator. So that's my role here today.
And I'm Kerry Mace. I'm the Consumer and Community Involvement Program Coordinator for UWA. So I'm the person you contact with regards to finding consumers for your projects, and I will be organising the community conversations.
Fantastic. Well, now we've done the important part. We know who we are anyway, but that's great to do. So why are we here today? Well, we're here today to be able to, for me, I have the great job of being able to ask all the questions, and the three of you will be able to provide all of the valuable information that's needed, without a doubt.
No pressure.
That's for sure. No pressure. But without a doubt, that's going to be great. But also, as I said, we want to invite questions from you in terms of particular things that might come up during our conversation, but also to make sure that we are providing all the information that you need regarding community conversations and the way in which researchers can access them through an expression of interest process via the amazing Office of Research at UWA. So let's get started. To begin with, basically what we're going to walk through is just a bit of some clarification about why consumer and community involvement, or CCI. No doubt I will refer to that acronym as we go along, but why should we involve people with lived experience in research, and why is it important, and why is that growing more and more significant with research? So we'll talk a little bit about that, but also what is a community conversation, because that's what this is all about. That's probably important that we clarify. And then the eligibility. So what's the process of applying? How do people go about doing it? And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So that's kind of a bit of the rundown of what this next little bit of time will look like. But just to start with, I suppose we're all committed and fully understand, which is fantastic, the role that people with a lived experience can play in research. And consumer and community involvement is becoming the point of difference in best practice research. Now, we're seeing that not only within WA, and researchers involving people with lived experience are leading. We are leading nationally in terms of this amazing work that's happening. But at a national level, we're already seeing that CCI, the involvement of people with lived experience, is becoming a point of difference in great research and best practice research. So we're seeing that growth of it no longer being a tick the box, as something that you kind of think, oh, can I talk to a patient? Okay, that'll do, that ticks a box. So it's no longer a tick the box, simply because in grant application processes, and funders now, they recognise the difference between a genuine commitment and a genuine need to involve people with lived experience and the tick the box option. What we know at a state level, the WHC and CCI program has been working really closely with the Future Health Research Innovation Fund, or another acronym, the FURI Fund, and we've been working with them to ensure that consumer and community involvement criteria are part of the application process. So much so that 15% up to 15% of a research application score is committed to CCI. So what we now know since the FURI Fund's been operating in the grant schemes is that if your consumer and community involvement isn't great in your research application, odds are you won't get shortlisted. So it's becoming less of that, oh, tick the box, to I need to get my head around what this is and how to do it, and then to then get support in knowing how to embed it, not just in research applications, but obviously then in the process of delivering the research and co-designing, delivering and then translating. So that's where we're seeing a huge change in the involvement of people with a lived experience. What we're also finding is that evidence of what we already know, that involving people with a lived experience, involving consumers, has an important aspect in improving the quality and the impact of the actual research or the project. And the Raine study has demonstrated that again and again and again, and Di, it'll be great to have you share about that. But that research translation, we know, again, this is no longer a tick the box, we know that it's a worthwhile investment. So that's what we want to encourage all of UWA researchers to be looking at. And what we're going to be talking about today gives the opportunity to actually help researchers work out how to do this. So Romola, can you share with us a little bit about UWA's amazing commitment to consumer and community involvement being part of best practice research? So what does that look like here at UWA?
So thank you for that wonderful introduction. We are absolutely committed to it, and part of that is we support CCI to deliver its services, and in exchange we receive really important and helpful resources, expertise, etc. So we have a coordinator.
We do.
The lovely Kerry Mace. And if you only remember one thing, remember Kerry's name.
We'll put up her contact details. We don't miss those. That's important.
There's also a lot of online resources, so access to the CCI program's e-course.
Yes.
So if you can't get to a workshop or a webinar, you can still go away and look at it in your own
free.
time. And it's free to you. And there's also a series of masterclasses, 4 of them funded by UWA.
Yes.
And more if you've got self-funding. Yes. So if you want a particular masterclass run just for you, that could be arranged as well.
Absolutely. And
then finally, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is we recognise that not everybody has the funds to pay for the setup of a community conversation and the honoraria involved with that. So there is a limited number of community conversations that UWA supports following an EOI process. And we encourage people who wouldn't otherwise be able to access a community conversation to apply for those. There'll probably be 2 rounds of those, 2 twice a year.
Yes.
So really this is a really visible demonstration of how much UWA wants to build the capacity of all of our researchers. So to remove those barriers between ourselves and our participants, our patients, because it's so important to set the right research priorities.
Yes.
To do the science the right way and to communicate the science once you've discovered the findings the best way possible for maximum impact.
Yep. And for UWA to be setting aside funds, resources, in terms of people resources, is an incredible commitment. And I really want to acknowledge the fact that that is visible. It is there. You know, it's great to have the research office and the Pro Vice Chancellor and the DVC of the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research saying this is important, but it's fantastic. It's all about translation. It's fantastic to see that the doing is being supported, and so it's an amazing, significant step for UWA.
And so I think a lot of people still don't realise that this is available to them, and
no.
aren't availing themselves
Hence
of the
this,
resources.
hopefully this webinar to get it out
there.
there.
Yes. So people who know, and
Yeah.
a lot of people who are not in the know don't know, and we need to break down that barrier.
Well, this is step one. You're part of it today. This is step one. So, Di, I can't, between you and Romola, I'd love to get you both to talk about consumer and community involvement in the Raine study, but also why should researchers bother? Like, is it worth it?
It's absolutely worth it. So the time when you think I've covered everything, I've created this project, and you put it to a group of participants or just consumers, they will come up with something relevant that you haven't thought of.
Yep.
As I've said, I've lived experience in the Raine study, so I think, oh, I might know what the participants need. Yep. I absolutely do not. Yep. Every time we consult with them, we get some real gems back that make us more aware going forward across all our groups and also for the project. So it's really important. You think you might have it all sorted, but you don't. So they really do give us the information we need to make it more relevant, to get them to engage more, and to get them to keep coming back for Raine studies. So that is the retention that our consumer or community involvement creates is really important. From methods of how to contact them the best way, of what feedback they want from their research project, what to research, what are they interested in. Sometimes you can't control all your money towards those areas, but if we have that research priorities and understanding, at the base of Raine study, we can work on that and then approach them again for different aspects. So that's a real sort of short summary.
No, and that's great. And obviously it's embedded in the way that in the governance, in the processes.
Yes.
So we're talking, and we'll talk lots more in a minute about what a community conversation is, but where do you see a method like that, a community conversation, as being relevant for researchers potentially at the beginning of their research a journey? I sound like Oprah, but at the beginning of, and I don't want to sound like Oprah, but at the beginning of where they're at, how do you think something like a community conversation
I think that's really,
helpful?
it makes the focus in on what they need. It stops them wasting time on issues that aren't relevant or areas. It makes them see a method of perhaps keeping engaging participants to streamline documents or paperwork. So if they have that at the beginning, they've got a real true understanding of what the needs of the consumers are. And I think that saves everybody time and creates the relevance that we were talking about.
And I know, and when we get to the CCI program has nearly 7,000 members of people with lived experience, which that's the resource that is available to UWA researchers for us to be able to find the right people. But we continue to hear things where if you don't live with a condition or have a lived experience of caring for someone potentially with a disease condition or whatever that might be, or an experience with a health service, often you don't know what it's like 24/7 to live and breathe with that. And the best moments that we have in a community conversation, or I'm sure it happens all the time in terms of the Raine study, are those moments where researchers and the team think, I would never have thought of that.
Exactly right.
And that's where in those beginning phases, it's about acknowledging the expertise that the researcher has. It's amazing. The same with clinicians, an amazing pillar of research. But this third pillar of consumer and community involvement and people with a lived experience, those three together, it creates for an even better process of research, but also helping decide what to research and how to research.
Yes, because
as well.
the money's short, the time's short, or long in that case, but that's why you can prioritise what's really important to all of them, and you get a better engagement from all the stakeholders, a better engagement from the researchers, and the other way back as well.
So speaking more generally as a researcher rather than about the Raine study, I think one of the challenges, I'm a researcher, I'll start by saying I'm a researcher who came from the old school, because I'm an old so-and-so. And so we didn't do consumer engagement, right?
No.
So
not like this.
Not in the same
Yeah.
way. We did it, but not in the same way, and it wasn't as clearly articulated. And having to actually reflect on why do I need to change my practice is quite an interesting thing to do. It's quite hard to make that shift. And so I've had to think about it quite a lot. And one of the things we have a tendency to do is to get in our little sort of narrow trenches as researchers, and we're kind of ploughing this particular thing, looking at some specific variation. I'm interested in sleep apnea, for example. and interested in the way that sleep apnea affects the brain. And I'd be sitting there thinking, well, the next question I want to ask is how does it affect executive function? So, cognitive control and planning skills. But it wouldn't have occurred to me to ask the question is, does a person with sleep apnea care about their executive function or not?
What's significant to them?
What's significant to them? Do they even know what executive function is?
What's the most important impact
and why would it matter to them?
On them?
And that matters not only because I might be asking them to do something they don't want to do, so they won't turn up.
Yes.
Which itself is a problem for me, even if I'm only being selfish about it. But it also matters because I want to be able to do science that's going to have the best impact. And if somebody comes along and says to me, well, actually, my sleep problems potentially are affecting my ability to do my job or my hobbies or look after my family or my studies, and are you telling me that understanding more about how this affects my executive function might be relevant to helping me cope with that? I'm in. Well, that means
because they're the things that affect
them. They're the things that affect them. So I've had to make quite a shift in my career, and I know that I was kind of resentful when I started because it was like, this is just one more thing you want me to think about, and you don't want me to just tick a box. You want me to genuinely think about it. And when's the best time? And Diane's absolutely right. It's before you finalise the question that you're going to ask, because it may not be either the right question or framed in the right way or explained in a way that's going to engage people, so nobody's going to come along and you're going to sit there going, I only recruited 10 people, I needed 100. How many studies have we known that that's happened? And then there's the ethical issue. If you're trying to get people to do something that they really don't want to do, is that appropriate? So there's so many reasons why you need to start that journey very, very early on. But it doesn't just stop with designing the study, designing the ideas. It's also about how you communicate. How you write your forms.
What feedback they get. There might be some study you're doing and you're getting this answer, but there might be an offshoot of that that's really relevant to that participant. They might like that information, and you go, okay, well, that's not data I need, but here you are, and they love that, and that keeps them engaged.
And it's that team, isn't it? Like it is when consumer and community involvement is done as it can be. It really it's that reflection of amazing expertise, regardless of how many letters you've got before or after your name, whatever that might look like. But and everybody can make a difference, and everybody can be valued in the process. Absolutely.
And so for me, the best example of when it works actually was last year's Raine study symposium. So we had half the audience were participants and half the audience were researchers and students and so on. We had presentations by participants. They talked about their experiences being part of the Raine study, why they kept coming back. And at the very end, and actually all the way through, all the researchers kept saying thank you to the participants. Thank you for coming back for 30 years, for being here, etc. And one of the participants came to me and said, one of the original mothers, and said, we've been talking amongst ourselves, and I would like to say a few words to the researchers.
Hand the microphone over.
Can we have the microphone? And I kind of went, okay, here's the microphone. And they thanked the Raine study researchers. And to me, that was, I've got goosebumps. It still makes me want to cry. It was probably the best moment of my entire career. It was a beautiful moment, but it was a genuine moment where we were a team, we were a family, we were working together, they were with us. They didn't feel like we were doing research to them, they felt like we were doing research with them. And I cannot articulate to you how much that meant to me. It was just one of the best moments of my life.
And that's best practice research. That is the best picture, I think. Like I love that, and it, congratulations and celebration, absolutely.
Because 18 years.
It is. I know.
It's the two-way communication that gets the benefit that the researchers get, the consumers get it, and we often have our participants saying, well, there's experts in this field. I'm not sure what you read. I'm interested in.
Yes, I hope I can help. Exactly.
But they actually focus that researcher in on them, and we say, no, you don't have to know everything, and it's really important for that researcher as well.
Because that's the beauty, Kerry and I and the team with all of the CCI program team. We have the joy of interacting with so many different people with a lived experience, but also then with researchers and all manner. So we have a great job, but it's another one of those moments where when we meet with someone with a lived experience, and this is a new opportunity, they're wanting to do it because they want to make a difference. They're not doing it because they want to tell a researcher, you know, how to peel an orange. Like that's not what I was going to say, stuck an egg, but peel an orange is probably nicer visual. But they're not there to tell. They're there, but often they will say, "Oh, gee, I hope I can help." And the beauty of the work that we do is to be able to say, "You're an expert. You know your own lived experience. You're the expert on your own life." And then to bring people together is just great. Now, I'm just loving this conversation. We could just keep going. But
can I just make a comment?
Yes.
What I often find is people say to me, well, I'm not working with patients. So why do I need...
Yeah, I don't work with people.
I don't work with patients.
I work with agar plates.
Well, maybe. Or not even that, no, I don't work with patients. Yeah. Right? Yes. So I'm not working with... I'm not doing cancer research I want to. I'm working with the general population. I might be recruiting student psychologists in my school or whatever to come and do my research project. So why do I need to...
Why should I bother? Why does this make a difference?
Because they don't have a lived experience of, attentional bias or something, But I still think that it's important to engage them in, is this question of interest to you? Yes. This is why it might be interesting. Yeah. And this is what we're going to ask you to do, and is that okay? And this is what it might mean. Would you be interested in that? And that's the hard shift. So I think people have accepted, well, if there's a patient group, it's happening in a hospital, yes, we should definitely do this. Yes. But the shift is to translate it to everything we do. Yep. And that might include agar plates, which don't have a lived experience. No. But then who do you consult with?
And it's about, all researchers I know don't do research just because they can't think of anything else to do. The Harry Perkins building is full of researchers who want to make a difference. It's like every other researcher. And it's great to be able to encourage, and that's the work that Kerry does in getting alongside researchers as a CCI coordinator, to be able to say, so where are you wanting, who is it that you're wanting to make a difference with and for? And they're the people that we find to bring together. And again, it's another great moment for researchers to kind of go, but I look at data, or I look at, whatever it might be, to then be able to bring the perspective of, but it's actually, let's broaden how you're looking at this, because, you're doing research to make a difference. Who are you wanting to make a difference for or with? So let's look at those people and bring you together. And it's okay, we're alongside. We don't throw people in the deep end and go, off you go, see you later, bye. It's that supportive process. So let's make a shift and move on to talking about a community conversation about, because that's what this process is about, in terms of talking more about UWA, are one of the first universities to have an expression of interest process for researchers to try to access these 4 community conversations per year that are available, and the investment that comes along with that. So, Kerry, can you answer a question that lots of researchers ask us? What is a community conversation?
Right, so a community conversation is bringing a group of people with lived experience in whatever area they're in to come together and talk and answer questions. It's an abridged World Cafe method. So we bring them together, we sit them down, we give them a cup of coffee, maybe some food, relax them, and start asking questions. We have good old butcher's paper to to record all their answers. We just sit there and find out what they think about the questions that we're getting, their research that the researchers are doing, to find from their lived experience where from, what are you going to do? So, and it's always linked to the research topic that they're doing. So I'm not doing well at explaining this.
I'm going. So it's a 2-hour session.
Yes, that's right. It's a 2-hour session. We usually have 30 people in the room, so we don't want it massive. We want to have that really good conversation with the consumers. There's always a CCI coordinator sitting at the table. We facilitate the conversation so that everyone who's sitting on the table gets a chance to speak. We make sure everyone has a chance to give their opinion, because we know that some people like to talk. We know that some people like to sit there, but we want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to have a conversation. So we're sitting there, so for the 2 hours, 30 people, there's Well, yes, and there is an honorarium that we ask to be paid to the consumers for their time. Their information it's really gold to the researchers, as Romola has said.
Yeah.
It's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
So
and it's recognising their expertise.
their expertise, it is.
Yeah.
So we are all experts in our lived experience in whatever that is.
Yeah.
So
you know, there's this amazing 2-hour event, and that's great with tea and coffee and food, because that's always a good thing. But what happens then? So there's great conversation and lots of ideas, and it's always de-identified data information, isn't it? So it doesn't say Kerry said this and Romola said this. It's general thoughts and ideas.
It's general thoughts that we pop down, and if someone comes up with exactly the same thing, we'll just put a tick next to it. So we'll say, oh, okay, half a dozen people, so we know that's a real theme. So, and at the end of the night, the facilitators will come together and we'll find the top 10 things that people have spoken about, and then we quite often do we call it a dotmocracy. So we give all of our consumers 3 dots.
Sticky dots.
Sticky dots.
The power of the sticky dot.
Power of the sticky dot. So, and then
everyone loves to vote.
The facilitators go away. They come up with the 10 top things that have been spoken about on the evening. We pop a post-it note up with those top things, and everyone is asked to take their 3 dots. They can put it on one area if that's what they want, or one on 3 different ones. So, and we find out then what is the top question that they want in that area. So it's quite a bit of fun, because you're standing there and I've got 3 dots, but there's 10 questions. I want to put a dot on all of them. You can't have any more dots. So
and often and during the community conversation, the lead researchers as part of the team are in the room, but they don't have to. They don't have to do anything, and it's actually great that they don't. They just get to listen and just absorb what people are saying.
We ask them just to stand back and listen, but if we have a question or something that we as facilitators can't answer, we'll get them to come over. And
so they give clarification at the beginning about the project.
They'll do a presentation.
This is why you're here.
This is why we're here. This is our project. This is what we're doing. Now we want you to tell us, have we got it right?
What is it we need to know?
What do we need to know? Have things we're missing. So and then at the end of the night, all of the information is put together. We can do the report, or we give you a template to actually put into the report, so that you've got the information there.
And that highlights all of the key themes, but also from that dotmocracy, it's a brilliant visual, because you've got some things might only have some key themes or thoughts might only have 2 or 3 ideas, and then others may have 10, 10, 15. And so it's great to watch a researcher to sit there and go, that's brilliant, but also that moment of, I would never have thought of that. Or I actually didn't think, I actually wouldn't have put that as the top thing.
Like I wouldn't have been comfortable asking about that.
Exactly right.
You've just told me that I can ask about erectile dysfunction.
Well, because,
But it's true,
it may be important to somebody for that particular, whatever that particular issue and topic is.
And being given permission to ask those difficult questions is really important.
So I think people can gather that we love running community conversations, but they're also
my favourite thing.
But they're also a really valuable tool, resource, and provide incredible data and information in that report, because as a result, that information can then be used, can't it? Especially at the beginning of a project.
It can actually get you to actually think differently. There's one researcher who has actually, from a community conversation, has actually put in a grant in a different way and is working from something someone said at the community conversation.
So it helps refine sometimes, doesn't it, the topic? The focus, it doesn't, I don't think I've ever known a researcher to throw it all out the window and start again, but often what it does is help refine even the way, I know Di, you were saying, the way that a question might be asked, but also sometimes it can help confirm what the researcher had kind of thought, but there's nothing better than going, oh, great, we're on the right track, this is the right direction, and all of these people who represent people who live with that particular condition or situation are thinking a similar thing. And So yeah, so it's great in terms of the project, but also, as we know and as I spoke about, even at a state government level, so the Fury Fund grant schemes, to be able to use that information to say, this was our original idea, we then engaged with people with a lived experience, and as a result, this is the change or the impact or the value that it gave. So you can capture that in your grant application, and therefore this is what we're seeking funds for. This is our project, and we know that makes a point of difference. We do the training. We've done lots of training for the grant review panels for the Fury Fund grant schemes, and we know what they look for, and that is absolutely one of those things that they look for. So, okay, so that's great. Hopefully that gives a bit more information about a community conversation. So in terms of the expression of interest process with UWA, how do you assist as a CCI coordinator? Where do you fit in the process of a community conversation?
Okay, so I'm the person who actually will organise it for you. So once they're chosen, we've got an EOI process that's on the website.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
We'll talk about that later.
Yep.
But it comes to me, talk to me about the questions, about the community that you want. We do an event, what we call an event template. We fill it all in with all the information. We use our 6,000, 7,000 network strong to actually find those people. So I don't...
And also the researchers' networks as well.
Yep. Everyone's research or everyone's network. So I don't leave you out on your own.
Yeah, we don't hang you out to dry.
Don't hang you out to dry. So I'm there every step of the way. I'm the one who finds the consumers. I'll help you set the questions that you've got. We'll sit down and talk about the process of the evening, and we'll get that all together. I have wonderful assistants in the office who will do the catering and the room hire,
all the logistics, all the organisation
of it. So, and then on the night, you turn up with some scribes. We do ask you to bring some scribes along so that they can sit and have the process as well. Particularly your PhD students, it's a real learning curve for them to actually sit there in the room and listen to the consumers. And at the end of the night, we put it all together and give it to you.
So and I think that you're there to guide. So it's not, it's not left to the researcher or the research team to figure out how to do this. So if I'm a researcher and I've got a grant application that's due, in 3 weeks' time, so what's the timeline for a community conversation?
Community conversation is around 8 weeks, I believe. It just depends on what we've got on at the time. So if we've already got full calendar, then it may be a little bit longer, but minimum would be 8 weeks.
And that's to ensure that we find the right find the right people
in
and that people can make themselves available to come.
Consumers need time to actually know, to fit in their busy schedule of being there. And it takes us a bit of time to make sure that we've got the graphics right for the advert and that we've got the everything, all the information out there to make sure that they know what's coming on.
So the CCI program does all of those logistics. We do the promotion, but the CCI coordinator, you work with the researchers to find out who they know and what networks and so that's great. And that you've got to plan in advance. It
is a planned thing,
especially for an event like this. This is really important. Okay, that's great. So hopefully that's enough information for people, for researchers, hopefully to be going, oh, okay, this might be something I need to consider. And I think also because for researchers who potentially aren't already successful in there with a grant and a project and a big bucket of funds to keep the research project going for 2 years or 3 or 4 years. So for researchers who are at that beginning stage looking for an opportunity, they're keen, they're wanting to know more, they're sitting there going, okay, tell me more. What's the process? What does that look like? What's the expression of interest process that is important for them to know about?
Okay, so what we ask is that if you haven't done any community consumer engagement before, we're going to ask you to do the e-course first. We think you need to have that basic e-course to actually get that basic understanding.
So just on that, so the WHTN CCI program has, as Romola mentioned earlier on, we have an online e-course. introduction to consumer and community involvement in research, and it takes at the most up to 30 minutes. It's and you get a certificate of completion at the end, which again, brilliant for a researcher's CV, but also evidence of your commitment to the process. And also evidence that you will need for the expression of interest process. Is that right? So you need to have,
you need to have done that.
Do the e-course.
Yes. If you have already had consumer involvement, you actually understand. Give me a call.
Yep.
Or email me and have a chat about it, and then we'll get you to do the EOI process to do the forms.
So who, and this is to all three of you, who is eligible? Who would you be thinking is eligible to apply for a community conversation?
So if you're a researcher who's starting out with a research idea, you don't yet have the funding for it.
Yep.
You're trying to put together a really strong grant application.
Yep.
The scheme requires community engagement, which the NHMRC does.
Yes.
The MRFF does. The
Absolutely.
Fund does.
Yes.
But you just don't have the funds to pay the setup fee.
Yes.
That's when you'd apply for an EOI. We have a very limited number of, we've only got 4 of them for the whole university.
Yep.
So if you're sitting on a pot of money that you could use to pay for your own community conversation,
use that.
Because otherwise you're taking the opportunity from someone who doesn't have an alternative.
Great.
We would still hope and expect that you have a little bit of money to pay the honorarium.
Yes.
On the form it says sort of $1,100 to $2,100, but that's assuming you have 30 people.
Yeah, that's right.
If you have fewer, it might be less.
So that's a
maximum.
The honorarium policy that the CCI program has is on our website, but also Kerry can forward that to you in terms of what the cost looks like.
So if you like, there are 2 costs. There's the setup cost of the conversation, which is Kerry's time and the CCI's time, and then there's the honorarium cost. So the EOI is to get one of the 4 workshops, conversations where the setup cost is covered by UWA. Doesn't include or cover the honorarium. So we hope people will have a little bit of money to pay for that. However, if you don't, if you're completely brassic for cash, you can fill in the form and say so, and we can see whether we can find a little bit of money to help out. We probably wouldn't be able to manage the full 30 people because that requires, nearly over $2,000.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
But in other words, don't let it be an impediment.
Yes, so still apply.
Still apply.
And
and
it's
also consider whether there are other sources you can apply
Well, I was going to say, because it's also worthwhile putting your hat in the ring, for lack of a better statement, to indicate your commitment to the process as well, because that's important. And the leadership team that you as a researcher report to, that's really important for them to be aware that you can see that this is important, because you don't know what might be elsewhere to support.
So just be clear, this form is to express interest in one of the 4 funded set up community conversations. So effectively, if you win one of these, with or without honorarium help, that is a UWA Research Award.
You've won the lottery.
You'll be able to put that on your CV as a research award that you've won. So that also is something for your CV as well.
Fantastic.
That being said, if you've got the funds, you just approach Kerry, and you can obviously use the form to kind of structure the conversation, but you don't need to use the EOI if you've got the funds.
Yes, of course. Okay, that's great. So we've just got a few slides that we can just put up in terms of just highlighting those few details. So I'll just get the screen to be shared with people. And basically, so on the UWA Office of Research website, all of this information is there, but also a recording of this webinar will also be placed there. So if you can't remember what we talked about, or I don't know if we're going to tell jokes, but anyway, that information, if you want to go back, you can also find this webinar, which is helpful. So Kerry, can you just I know we've probably talked about it, but these are the important steps to follow, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
So don't jump to number 3 or 4 first.
No, don't jump to 4 first.
No, okay.
So the first one is complete the e-course.
Yep.
So, and which even if you have had CCI involvement, I'd actually still recommend it to go in your CV and just there might be things that you have missed and not quite understood properly.
Yeah.
So I really recommend it.
So,
it's only half an hour,
and
so
you
can do it at midnight if you're awake.
Yeah.
It's open any time.
It's not to solve your sleeping habits. It's more important than that. But anyway, so people need to provide that certificate as proof of. Okay, great. Yes. So
and then get in contact with me.
Yep.
Have a chat about your project.
Yep.
We can help you refine it. I can help you with the EOA process. Yep. So and then you complete the application form.
Yep.
With at the Office of Research website, and then
Erica is
the lucky recipient.
Awesome.
And once the closing date's there, we'll sit down and have a read of them and choose the lucky winners. And I'm really looking forward to reading them.
It will be amazing.
See who's got some good projects coming up.
Absolutely fantastic. Okay, and important information. If you are watching, feel free to take a photo of this screen, but also your information is on the Office of Research
Office of Research
webpage. Yes, and you're also in the UWA system. So
I am.
Kerry Mace, as Romola said earlier, if you don't remember anything else, just remember those two words as a name. That's important. Okay, so that's information that is important to have highlighted. That's great. So we have encouraged people to look at to provide some questions. But before we get onto that, is there anything else that we haven't mentioned or you want to just highlight, or we need to make sure we mention before we kind of pull things together?
I think just to remember, I'm there to help.
Yes.
You're not alone.
Yes.
I'm there to help.
But also to plan in advance.
Need to plan.
Yeah.
You know that I'm actually really stoked that I've had a researcher come to me whose grant is due in June.
Yes.
It's awesome.
That was
really
a small
awesome.
miracle, wasn't it? And
it was.
Shout out to that researcher. Hopefully you know who you are. There's a fan base now for you.
There is.
Quite
it's given us the time because we are. I must say we are really busy at the moment.
So
we've got a lot of projects.
So just on that, Kerry, you're not there 24/7.
No, I'm only there for UWA 2 days a week. So a Tuesday and a Thursday.
Okay.
I'm based in Perkins Building, but I am up at the campus quite frequently and move around and meet people wherever I need to, or on Teams if need be.
Yeah.
So, but time is the big one.
Yeah.
So need to allow plenty of
advance.
time, plan in advance. You know that you've got a grant coming up in whenever, come and see me. And we can now and let me know, and then I can plan.
Involvement at the top of the list.
Exactly
what you're planning to do.
Not what is this thing? It's at the
just before Christmas.
It's due tomorrow. Yeah.
There were 10 researchers that came to me and said, "This is due in next week.
Yeah.
What do I do for CCI?"
Yeah.
and
you know what? That's not unusual, and it's not a criticism, but there are ways and means to be able to change that to ensure, Di, you know the value of what you can get if you plan in advance and do it well. So we want to help.
We want to help understand
the best value you can.
And I would say anyone look at the website, look at the CCI website, and read all about all the other resources.
Not just because you're in one of the videos, Di, but you know, a star. Yes.
So there's some great resources there, and it gives you a full picture of what it is and what is involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots of links, all over the place.
Oh, the resources are great.
Yep. Okay. And the other thing that's on our website is so the EOI process is great. The e-course is great. And that's good, but also as a CCI coordinator and CCI program, we're here to build your skills in this space. And as Romola, you mentioned earlier, so our masterclass series has just been finalised and it's now live. Bookings are now live. We sold out last year, so get in.
And what are the masterclasses?
We've got introduction to consumer involvement. Writing in plain language, and grant writing.
CCI and successful grant writing.
CCI and successful grant writing.
We couldn't stuff any more people in the room last year. So
we've taken all the comments that we had last year, and we've improved it this year. So we're quite constantly changing from the feedback from researchers of what we need to put in there.
So last year our masterclass series was in person, and what we'll do is we'll do an in-person series once a year. But so this one, so the first masterclass starts on the 5th of April, and that's our introduction to CCI, consumer community involvement. So all of our masterclasses in April and May, and May are online. So that helps as well. WA wide, it ensures that regardless of where you live, breathe, and research, you should be able to access that. But bookings we're already getting registrations. So, and the other thing is that with our masterclasses, the e-course, our online e-course is a prerequisite for those masterclasses as well. So we're wanting to be able to use your time and give as much emphasis as we can as the how-to when we move on. So
it's very practical, hands-on.
So can I talk,
anything else?
Yes. Can I talk about another prerequisite?
Yes.
On the EOI, it asks you to list the name of the research team and their schools and your research repository link. If you do not have a research repository, you will not be eligible.
Okay. Important piece of information.
Really important because it is a requirement for staff to have a research repository. So we really can't fund awards, which effectively what this is, to people who are not complying with that requirement. And that's a policy for all UWA research awards. So it's the same here. It is a requirement. So,
get your ducks in a row.
Get your ducks in a row.
Okay, that's important as well. Okay, so there were a few questions. So one was, I'm interested in the community conversation, but what if I don't have any budget? Aren't consumers meant to be paid? So these are all good comments. And how am I meant to know how to do all of that? So I know we've kind of talked a little bit of that, but quick summary. So interested in in a community conversation, but no dollars.
Give me a call.
Still apply.
Yeah, still apply.
Yep. State your case.
That's it. If you don't tell us your case, we can't help you.
Yep.
So just put it in there. Tell us why.
Yep.
Why don't you have the funds?
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
And we will see what we can do.
And also where you're at as well in your
project.
it comes the journey, the research journey. Like it's where you're at in terms of things and what does that look like. Okay, that's great.
And talk to Kerry first because that's going to help you formulate your EOI.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, have a chat with me.
Yeah.
I can do it over
put
Teams.
the right things in the EOI.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Don't miss out on the important details. Okay, so that's good. When is the best time to have a community conversation, especially if I have a grant due?
Okay, as early as possible. And
so not a week before.
Not a week before. You need time to process that information, process what you get out of it. So it's a long-term one. So this isn't something, if you've got a grant due next month, it's too late. If it's
for a community conversation,
it's not too late for me to possibly help you.
No, still get in contact.
Contact with me, but a community conversation is a long term. So if you've got an MRFF at the end of the year or an NH and MRC, contact us now. We've probably got time to do a community conversation before then.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
What I was going to say though is that I think we tend to think about community conversation in relation to one grant.
Yeah.
Most researchers are working in a domain.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
So you might be working in depression or vascular dementia or cardiac disease, and you're going to have a pretty good idea about the sort of broad brush focus that you could take to a community conversation and then use that for multiple grant applications.
And that's what we find.
It's
not a one-hit wonder. It is a gift that continues to keep on giving. And I know, Di, you would absolutely say that in terms of the Raine study. It just continues to surprise in all the right ways in terms of what you continue to get. And that information that you get as a result of a community conversation, we've seen researchers continue to use that and to guide their current project, but also what am I going to do next? I remember that there were other themes, there were other thoughts, there were other ideas.
It's those research priorities that keep coming up, and the top 10, the top 5, whatever, and in a field like that or an area that's just makes sense.
That's really important.
The other thing as well is that you're meeting a group of people who have an interest in your interest.
Yes.
And as we said, community engagement doesn't stop with setting the research question.
No.
Many people involve consumers or participants, patients in an advisory committee. So there's an opportunity there to find out whether there's anyone interested
Absolutely.
in coming into that more ongoing role
Yes.
to be on an advisory
We
panel,
actually
etc.
have 2 vacancies at the moment that are doing exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
And that's
start
what
with
we find.
conversation and build a relationship, and then hopefully recruit someone
Because
from
there
there.
are always, I mean, all of the people who come with a lived experience to a community conversation are amazing people, and we're quite specific in finding those people. We don't just go out to Hospital Avenue and the bus stop and say, you're warming up, right, you'll do. Like it's look, I promise you we don't. But so that's where the specifics of who, that's our job, to find the right people, which is kind of, and it's a segue, and I'm here already. So another question. You mentioned a community conversation brings up to 30 people with a specific lived experience together. How am I meant to find the people, and how does that work?
Well, you don't.
So,
you don't. You leave that to
So
me.
the researcher can now breathe.
They can breathe.
Okay. Yep.
So, but if you've got connections and a whole community that you've actually worked with before, we need those as well. But we will find the consumers. We will do all of the registrations and have all of that. We do all of that for you.
Yeah, great.
So,
no, that's fantastic.
Because I had a researcher just recently turned up and they had a contact list of 3,000, which was absolutely fantastic to have that, to actually get the right people in the room for her.
Yep. And that's our job, which is brilliant. We're here to support, guide, and then do all the fun stuff, invite you along for the ride, which is a good thing. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Something that somebody asked me, but I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is the questions I want to ask, say the measures I want to use, have already been used in other studies. So why do I need a community conversation now?
Yes. And often the beauty of a community conversation is it's not actually research. This is informing research. So it's not about having to do, I mean, you can choose to go down the ethics road if you want to then be able to use the information later on. But this is not research per se, this is informing research. So validated questions, we don't need to worry about validated questions and or surveys. The questions that we ask are ones that we know are the ones that people with a lived experience want to be asked. And so sometimes it's great, you shouldn't ever just ask that questions once, and I know Di would absolutely say the same thing.
It's about that time that you ask that question.
Time and
so
place.
those validated questions might have been developed 15 years ago, but then you're asking it now because you have to keep using it, and you've got all these different aspects, and people have lived through it differently,
exactly
and they live in a different time period, so you need to ask them again.
Well,
community changes.
And our lives change. Look, I mean, you're not allowed to mention
3
COVID,
years.
but look at COVID. I mean, no one would have seen that coming. So it's asking questions and engaging and connecting with people with a lived experience is not a one-off. And the more you do it, and the more you can understand that this just continues to be the gift that keeps on giving to everybody, as well as to the person with the lived experience. It is just the most enriching experience for them to be working, knowing that they're working as part of a team, making a difference.
Yeah, so I ran a community conversation 5 years ago. Do I need to do another one? The answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's where talking to Kerry to say, this is what I found out last time. What is there a benefit? But also, this is where I'm thinking we need to go next. What do you think? Yeah, so it's every time we run one, regardless of if we've got who's in the room and what the topic is, there is always new. There is always new thoughts, new experiences as we go along.
So it does evolve each time you do it, and when you do it, it will evolve.
So,
absolutely.
So the fact that it evolves, which I accept, if I was a hardline quantitative researcher, would scare me rigid, because what I would say to them is, well, how do I know I've got the right answer? Because if it changes each time someone asks the question, I could be wrong.
Yes. Yep.
But there's never a wrong answer, is there?
Not in community conversations. I mean, the answer to that question, you're always going to ask it in a different time frame, whether you ask the same question then or when. But the stuff around it might change, and supporting that participant in completing that questionnaire is what you might need to know.
That's where the beauty of the questions, and that's why we work with the researchers,
and we take it back to the team
to
well.
figure out the right questions to ask, so it informs where the researcher is at or looking to go. So it's not about throwing the researcher's project or design out the window. It's about complementing, adding and enhancing.
And you might ask some questions about this one, but some of the answers might give you your next project.
Oh, without a doubt.
Or an offshoot. That happens quite frequently.
Yep.
The community conversation with pharmacy.
Yes.
That's had quite a few offshoots
Yes.
from that one community conversation.
Yeah. So it is a gift that keeps on giving.
It does.
I think, and you can't underestimate the value of that information. It's rich. It's
and
rich.
You've got those consumers there too.
And it's the kind of
fall back
information
on.
that you can't find in a publication or in. You can, if you're a clinician researcher, you can talk to your patients, and please keep doing that. That's really important.
Yes.
But it's different to that.
Yes.
It's a different kind of situation. That patient-doctor situation isn't part of it, but also it's an environment that opens up the opportunity to get more, to share more.
And it's exactly the common person saying what they feel, and they can share that.
And it's also quite often the patient doctor question. A patient won't answer the question for a doctor, but for a researcher, they'll give more information. It's a very different conversation.
And that's why the CCI program facilitates the community conversation. That's why we're there. And the biggest part of, and the worst part of my job in that role, in a 2-hour community conversation, is trying to get people to stop talking. And that's a joy. Like that is a brilliant opportunity. It's a great problem for me to have. So I'm aware of the time. Hopefully you've found value watching, and you've taken some notes. The web links, obviously, don't forget two important things. One, Kerry Mace, don't forget that, and also UWA's Office of Research webpage. That I'm hoping to see some traffic both to you and also to that webpage. We hope that this has been helpful for you. We wanted to be able to encourage you. Hopefully you're encouraged to see that this might be something that you need to seriously consider and understand the value of, but also that there's a process that is sitting here ready and waiting for you, and UWA is absolutely trailblazing in this space. So thank you so much, all of you, for your time. I mean, we love to chat anyway, but it's been great to do that.
Part of the job.
Thank you to CCI program team, to Brian and Hannah for facilitating this for us, and also for those people who have joined us. It's been great meeting you via a webinar, and we look forward to being in touch with you and you being in touch with us in the future. Thanks very much.